favor. This is one more, please. Hello, and welcome to Otra, por favor.
Otra, por favor.
Episodio 50.
50, baby. Let's go.
Man, it's a special episode because it is meant for a special guest.
Yes.
She is a phenomenal singer, and she also has performed the national anthem in Spanish and English at the Q2 Stadium before the games against Tigres, Pachuca, and Atlas. Did you also did the national anthem when America played?
Would that have been here in Austin a few years ago?
Yeah, it was like...
Was it at the Dell?
Nah, it was, I think America played Monterrey.
No, then I did.
Okay.
Oh, no. It was at the Q. At
the Q2.
No. I didn't do that one. No, but before I got to do the Q2 Austin gigs, I think the reason I even landed that gig in the first place is because a few years ago there had been a game. I believe it was a Pachuca game, and it was at the Dale Diamond Stadium, which is baseball, but they turned it into a soccer field.
Right.
And so that was already a few years ago before Austin FC even came to life. So anyway, and then since I've gotten the opportunity to sing both the U.S. Star Spangled Banner and then the Himno Nacional Mexicano, or Mexican National Anthem at Q2, which has been a really cool experience.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, when I heard it, I got goosebumps both times. And the beautiful thing about the game of football is you never know the types of things that are going to come out of it. Friendships, or in this case, learning of a new artist. So we're happy to have you here. Welcome to Otra, por favor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this podcast, we like to focus on football, life, culture, anything that makes our community great. So we're happy to have you on.
Thank you.
Yes.
And before we go into your life, we want to just do a quick recap of Austin FC and what's going on.
Right.
Second place. We're actually from the third place. We have one more game ahead by points, so that puts us in a very good spot. We're playing Atlanta this Saturday, and there's about 200 Verdes traveling to Atlanta. So everyone is out there. Shout out, and I know who you guys are. Y'all be safe and don't spend too much money.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be an Austin FC fan. Just based on where we were last season to where we're at the middle of the season now, second place. I don't think any of the pundits had us here, and we're playing at a really good environment in Atlanta. So this is a good chance to continue to push forward and hopefully start to creep on LAFC's first place. Last game, what were your thoughts, Richie?
Man, it was actually the last two games because they were away. Yeah. And the first one was June 30th, and we won out of nowhere. And we beat Charlotte. And then the other one was against Colorado. The one thing we have right now is we have a couple of players that are injured in the defense and the midfield, and we need, to focus on not getting red cards or yellow cards because that's going to hinder us from having a short squad right now.
Right. Danny Pereira is definitely a big offender for having the silly cards, but I think it comes with his youth. Once he gets that experience, he'll know how to measure himself a little bit more. My biggest takeaways from these past two games, and basically a lot of the away games, is how tenacious the team has been, how they've made huge comebacks, not expecting, getting that tie, getting that win, playing with men down, being able to overcome injuries. It's incredible to watch, and I think we can look at this Austin FC team and say, this is real, and they have that championship mentality. So I'm excited for this game tomorrow at 6 p.m. What do you think, result-wise? What are we going to do?
I'm going to give it a tie, 1-1.
Yeah.
I feel like the team is a bit tired. But then again, they surprised me the last couple of times. Fagundes is a beast. So, and then the last part of the soccer section is Houston Dynamo. They're going to be playing here. So HH might be playing that game.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big name to come to Austin.
Right. Right. Big shout out to our friends, or not so much friends, in Houston Dynamo, getting Ache, a very important Mexican player. But obviously they don't have the pieces to make a good organization, a good team that's going to give us a lot of battle. Hopefully, it's a good game, but I expect us to come on top of that Dynamo game. And then for my prediction on the Atlanta game, I think it'll be a tie, 2-2.
Okay.
But we'll see. Hopefully, they surprises it. Austin FC's been surprising me every game.
Right.
Mostly for the good, sometimes for the bad.
I know.
This last one, shout out to Gallagher. He played an amazing game, and he's, to me, one of the most improved players.
Have you watched any of the games lately, Leslie?
I watched the last game that I sang at,
Okay.
and we actually lost, but it was a friendly.
Yes.
Friendly.
No, actually, when that game, they were going through a bit of a rut.
Right.
That was a horrible month, I believe, of May.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of a bad string of results, but man, they turned that shit around.
No, it's so the funny thing is, you can, like, usually I'm in the back, behind the goals, and you can see the players' reactions in their faces, and also the people. So La Murga is all going at it, and we get scored on like the first minute of the game, and then everybody's like, "Ole!" Oh. And then, like, we get scored. So everybody's reaction is like, "Ole!" And like, "All right, guys, get louder, get louder." And then, like, yeah, and like, "Hasta, dale, ATX." And then you see the second goal come through, and they're like, "Dale, ATX."
Te dolió.
Te dolió. And you see Stuber's always looking at the fans, and it's like,
Yeah.
God, then I feel like crap because they give so much to the team,
Right,
the fans. So Stuber looks at him, and he's like, "I'm sorry, guys." So you can see that looking down, but
yeah.
Well, from the audience perspective, you couldn't possibly think that Austin FC is ever losing whenever you hear La Murga.
Oh man, they're
Because
nonstop.
no matter what the score is, no matter how well or not well the team is doing, they're always giving it their best. So
Le echan muchas ganas.
shout out to my all the Murga out there,
Yeah. So we know that perspective of singing and chanting.
Mhm.
20K plus people at the players towards this spectacle that's happening. That's our perspective as fans.
Mhm.
What I'm interested in knowing is, Leslie, your perspective as an artist coming and singing the national anthem, basically, or performing anywhere. What is it like in that moment, in that arena, wherever it is, performing, being the only one there, and out to hundreds, thousands of fans? What is that like? What does that feel like?
well, again, I've done it 3 times now. And the first time, it was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
The first time I was, first of all, thank goodness I get to do a little sound check ahead of time. Because,
That's good.
Because the echo in the studio is unbelievable. It's just obviously very, very big stadium. But, it's, as far as the moment, I feel like, just like with any gig I ever do, I just try to feel the words and the emotion and whatever it is that I'm performing. And when it comes to the national anthems, again, being able to perform both the Star Spangled Banner and the Himno Nacional Mexicano is just such a huge honor. Just because, again, I'll go a little bit more into my background, but I was born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico. And I moved to Texas age 16. But, my whole elementary, middle school years, back in Mexico, I got to compete in our own little version of choir in public school in Mexico. What our choir looks like is basically a bunch of students rehearsing the Himno Nacional just to go compete against other schools. And my mom used to be the teacher for the choir, which, again, it's all very informal. Very low budget, not a whole lot of support for academics or extracurricular,
Right.
In the public school system in Mexico. But that was kind of my upbringing. I know the Himno Nacional by heart. In fact, I know all 4 stanzas, not just the one that I get to sing.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward to being in high school in Texas, and I actually got to sing the Star Spangled Banner in my high school graduation. Okay. And so I think that would have been my first experience, doing that, and just getting to do it in front of that many people at the stadium. I mean, it's obviously a huge honor. It always makes me think back on the first time that I ever got to do the Star Spangled Banner, and then, you know, just growing up singing the Himno Nacional in Mexico. It's such a, again, just the passion and being able to represent both of my countries. I think it's just such a big opportunity, and honestly, just with the reaction from the crowd that I've gotten, not just in the moment, but even just kind of walking out of the stadium and walking around, just hearing people mention how they felt both of the anthems deep in their heart,
Right.
And you know, even the people who maybe were just American, or the people who were just Mexican, just feeling the anthems and understanding that there's so much emotion and that you can connect to two different countries, and it's okay to do both.
Right, because we pretty much, as Mexicans that live here, we both feel both countries. Like, we both have love for them. And like, for me, is whenever I sang, like, I heard both. Like, for me, I sing both anthems because I was born in Mexico, but I grew up in America. So just being able to sing both of those anthems and have the same passion for both of, you know, the countries is because, you know, we're here. Like, you know, we have so many experiences, so many life situations where ups, downs. We appreciate both countries. So I almost dropped a tear on the Tigres game. Yeah, I was a bit tipsy, and I was with my wife, and I'm like, but and I would say, like, I probably was not the only one, because I saw several people just going like this, and it's just the emotion and how you delivered, like, the anthems, and they're very hard because I've known of other artists that sing a cappella, even like in Mexico, they do the Himno Nacional, and they get nervous and they mess up. But, and like I saw, like, you went at it, like, you didn't think about it, you just, you know, like, you just went to town, like we say.
Well, and again, I think it always comes back to just doing it from the heart, and not even thinking about whether people like it or not. Ultimately, just giving it my best, and I think that's always worked. Because again, from the Tigres game all the way to the last one. Was the last one Pachuca? I'm sorry.
Pachuca, yeah.
Pachuca was the last one.
Shout out Pachuca.
They beat us hard. You know, all three matches. Again, I've gotten to see the reaction from the crowd, and then just walking around afterwards. You know, I've had fans come up to me and basically shed a tear and tell me how it just touched them, and again, that means so much to me. But ultimately, it's all about the emotion that people feel in the moment, and then hopefully it's a moment that they'll keep in their memories.
I'm pretty sure you build a memory, like, in the stadium. Like, there's a picture. I'm pretty sure later on in the museum of you know, the Q2 Stadium, or whatever name will be in the future, there's gonna be a picture of you. You know, like, the first performance of two anthems by this one, you know, great artist.
That's so sweet. I really hope so. That would be a huge honor. But something that's really funny is that, of course, I'm born and raised in Monterrey, and whenever it just so happened that the first match I was gonna sing was Tigres.
Oh, the Tigres match.
And so I grew up very close to the Rayados Stadium, so rivals, big time, hometown rivals.
Wow.
And so it's again, I never went one way or the other. I'm cool with whoever's winning. I always cheer for the winning team. So, but yeah, it's funny because whenever I, you know, went public with it and I posted on social media, I had my typical friends who are like big Rayados fans. And like,
they probably gave you a little bit of slander.
You know, like, how dare you? But just kidding. So proud of you. So anyway, yeah, it's such a cool thing. Again, just being not only getting to sing both of the anthems, but the fact that both of the teams were in my hometown, that was just mind-blowing. I think it just, all in all, I think that's probably what helped me deliver an even more emotional performance, because it always goes back to your upbringing and your roots, and you do utilize those memories and your experiences and put that into your performance. I think it's inevitable.
So before we want to talk more about the living or growing up in Monterrey. How was life for you in that time as you were, you know, in the coro? Like, what was your childhood like?
Fantastic. If I should brag a little bit.
Okay.
I feel like, growing up in the 90s in Monterrey was just such a great experience. I come from a big family. My mom has 10 siblings, so tons of cousins.
Very tight-knit family.
The grandparents were busy?
I'm sure they were. But tons of kids. And I actually, grew up very closely to my grandparents as well. I told you I lived nearby the Rayados Stadium, so that was my abuelito's house. I lived with my grandparents and my mom after my parents split up. My siblings, I have a brother and a sister, so my siblings and my mom and I lived with my grandparents, and then we also had another tia and another tío living at my abuelito's house, so it was just a family all the time. And then just the fact that we were right there in the middle of it, we would have our cousins come out and just mingle all the time. And we also got to just hang out with like the neighborhood kids and be outside and run around free. I mean, something that a lot of people don't get to do that these days.
Less and less now.
Less and less. And so, I had a very happy upbringing with just surrounded by family. And I was always in love with school. I was that nerd who was like, I'm feeling really sick today, but I am going to school. And my mom would be like, please take a break. Like, you don't have to go to school today. I'd be like, no, I'm going to school. I always kind of did well in school. That was my thing. And I was always a favorite child, even though my mom doesn't want to admit it.
Were you the type of the student that every time the teacher will forget about the assignment that was due that day, you'd be like, mister, you forget about this assignment?
No, teachers in Mexico don't miss a thing. They do not forget about the assignments. But I just, I feel like for me, just having that background and just that very tight-knit community and family and network of friends was just such a strong foundation to what was to come later on. Because the reason I even ended up moving to the States was because I was, my dad is a dual citizen. And so my siblings and I were looking to, process our paperwork so we can also become dual citizens. And in that process, I had my whole life figured out. Okay, I'm gonna go to college in Monterrey and Tec de Monterrey, and I already had a life plan. And I was 16 at the time. And when you're 16, you think you have your life figured out.
You have it all figured out.
Yeah. And then I ended up moving to McAllen down in the valley. Go 956. And that's how I ended up in Texas, because my dad lived in the valley. So moved to the valley, and my plans changed completely. I ended up going to high school here and getting really great opportunities. So I ended up in Austin because I went to UT Austin. So I moved here for college, and hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em. Hey, fellow Longhorn over here too. That's great. Great to hear.
Yeah.
What did you study at UT?
Public relations.
Public relations. Yeah. That's awesome.
Not a non-music major, but fun story. Always tying it back to music. And culture really is when I was in high school, I was taking this classical guitar elective class, and the teacher approached me at some point and was like, "Hey, Leslie, do you like singing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I actually sing. I don't really play." And he was like, "Okay, well, what about trying out mariachi?" And I was mind blown. I mean, what do you mean mariachi in high school? I was fresh off of Mexico, and I'd never heard of such a thing, having mariachi as an extracurricular activity in the U.S. And so, honestly, it opened this whole gate to a lot of things that I didn't even know existed. So I showed up to practice one day, and I decided that I loved it. And I kept doing it since. So by the time I graduated high school and then moved to Austin and went to UT, I also joined the UT Mariachi Ensemble. So I kept going with it.
That's incredible. That's a great story. I have a lot of respect for the 956 area, for their respect for mariachi music and how ingrained it is to the communities there. I was telling Leslie before the podcast that I have a couple of younger cousins that are in mariachi and throughout the whole system, and it kind of opened my eyes to how much this entire segment of Texas really focuses on community and, well, that type of cultural musical representation that maybe if you didn't know, it would surprise you for sure. But we've actually had another guest here too from the 956 area,
Max.
also a musician. So it makes me kind of curious, like, do you think there's something about the area that the music plays an important role in communities and especially young education?
I would say, in my personal experience, the valley is very small. Right. Or at least when I lived in the valley.
Compared to Monterrey.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shock. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, moving from the big metro city of Monterrey and then arriving in the tiny little valley. And I wasn't a stranger to the valley because I actually grew up, I mentioned that my parents split up and my dad lived in McAllen. So my whole childhood, we would visit him maybe once or twice a year. And so we would cross the border and just kind of spend a week or whatever, but it was never really the same, of course. Like, you visit a place and then you live there and it's a whole different experience. So it really was a small place for me. And mariachi really, I feel, was a really good way for my, not only my own entertainment, but I was growing and learning so much. And I wonder how many students take advantage of those resources that are available to the public school system, where you get to engage in an extracurricular activity. And especially, again, coming from Mexico, where the resources in schools are not the same, I think it, and you probably already have heard this, but you go to the valley and majority of people, a good chunk of people, have some sort of ties to Mexico. Some of them lived in Mexico. Yep. Some of them were born and raised in Mexico, and they go back and forth. And I think that experience helps us understand some of the things that we may lack back in Mexico, and then therefore really take advantage of the opportunities that we are presented living in this beautiful country where there are so many resources and just so many more doors that can lead to great careers or futures. And ultimately, I would say, in my experience, again, just not necessarily that there's something special about the valley. I'm not saying the valley is not special, but I think when it comes to just pursuing the arts or any kind of passion, I think it's a way to just find out who you are and also stay focused and kind of persevere. In a lot of the kids who might, be immigrants might already have that mindset that, hey, I didn't come here to just, be mediocre. I mean, I want to do something with my life, and I'm going to find a way to do it. Again, for me, it felt almost serendipitous that I had no clue that joining this guitar class was going to lead me to mariachi music. But, just opening those doors, you never know where it's going to take you.
So as you were diving into going into, places where you get open doors and opportunities, the language barrier, how did you overcome that part of knowing a new language and also maybe even singing songs in English?
It's funny that you even phrase it that way, because when I arrived in Texas, I knew maybe the numbers from 1 through 10, ABC, and the colors. And that was about my extent of the English language. I was very raw. And in fact, my siblings love making fun of me of how I was a very shy, believe it or not, I was a very shy child. Like, when I was young and growing up, I was just more timid, and I was petrified of even attempting to speak a word of English. I just couldn't get myself to do it. My sister would go all out, and she would pretend like she knew English like a pro. And me, I would just hide in the corner. And I had, family who lived in Texas, and one uncle specifically who lives in Dallas. He had married this woman who was American, and she was full English speaking. And whenever she would come out to Monterrey, and she would just try to talk to us, I would just like freeze in the corner, and my family would be like, "What's wrong with you? Doing? Like, just say something."
You start thinking you're like a pollito chicken, gallina hen.
Pretty much. So anyway, I would say that one of the ways that I was able to even learn the language was through music, ironically, because again, as a 90s child, I loved Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, and of course,
the best.
and of course, the Backstreet Boys and all the boy bands of the 90s.
Yes.
But I would say, as a kid, I would just sing, oops, I did it again. I had no clue what I was singing.
Yeah.
I had no clue what the words were. I was just pretending to know.
Right.
And then eventually, growing up, I started thinking about like, wait, what is it that song says? And then I would go back and read the lyrics and be like, oh, okay, let me translate this and see what I was singing. And I think that was one of the ways where I started learning the language, ironically, just kind of looking up lyrics and figuring out what they even were and translating them. But the way that I really immersed myself in the language was going to school and again, going back to how the Valley is so prominently Spanish speaking and like, the culture of Mexico is just so prominent.
Right.
I had to ask people around me to not even speak to me in Spanish, like just speak to me in English.
So kind of fully immerse yourself.
Yeah, so that I can practice it more. And at home, I tried to do the same. With my dad, I also had aunts and uncles who lived in McAllen. So that's really how I immerse myself. But I would say through music, and then of course just kind of just reading as much as I could and making myself do it. That really was the way to do it.
How long did it take you? Like you felt like, okay, after maybe a year or so, you feel comfortable. How was that process for you?
It's funny because I don't necessarily know that I have like a turning point when I'm like, oh, okay, this is it. This is when I feel really comfortable. I feel like it took maybe a few months for me to start getting in the rhythm. But I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but I feel like maybe even having a musical ear might have helped me learn the language a little bit better too, because I phonetically, like I could understand the sounds and I could kind of process them. But again, just, I remember, it's funny because now I can look back and I watched this video. I was valedictorian of my tiny little high school in the Valley, and I got to like do a speech, and it's crazy because my English was at a very different level back then than it is now. And again, I felt completely comfortable doing it back then,
right.
Even though it was just like 2 years into, immersing myself in the culture. But it was definitely a shock. I mean, I'm not going to lie, like it really took some hard work and just, applying myself and some discipline.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about how very quickly you adapted from 16 to valedictorian to giving a speech in English, to just fully kind of immersing yourself into this maybe culture you were more or less familiar with in a setting that was very welcoming, very tied to the Mexican heritage, but at the same time, you really pushed yourself to do it. And I think hearing that versus the stories of your childhood where you were hiding in a corner, it's like at some point you flipped it. I don't know how slow or how quick it was, but it's incredible to hear.
Yeah, I think it's just, part of the reason I moved, I was looking to get my dual citizenship. I also knew I needed to learn English. It was going to be a great life skill anyway. So It was one of my objectives. And I think it just took me getting over my fears and telling myself it's fine. Everybody around here knows you're trying. That's really what matters. And I think that's how I ended up getting down to it. So it's funny because now people tell me, well, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, if you ever want to learn a language, just lose your fears and immerse yourself. And if you really want to learn it and become fluent, you have to live in that language. That's the only way to learn about it.
And I think that can be said about if you want to learn anything.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. And then, so the reason why, like, say it's important because a lot of, Mexicans that come to America, they get super comfortable with this part of, we speak Spanish here so much, I don't have to learn English.
Right, especially if they're in a cultural bubble.
Right,
like in cities like Houston, Dallas, or in this case, in the Valley or wherever. Mm-hmm. Right.
And then there's cases of people that have been here for 40 years and they're American citizens and they still don't know English. And I'm like, for me, it's kind of like, how can you be in a country for 20-something years and you're still like, don't know how to like speak English? It's not even to like say to be like a thing where it's a bragging right, or it's something that te quieres mucho, because we always have that, that thing in Spanish and in Mexico especially, te quieres mucho porque hablas inglés. But it's a thing where like you need it because you're here. It helps you like just learn how to communicate with other people in America, because other cultures are learning English, especially at an older age. And like I think with us, sometimes we want to sit back and be comfortable in our own bubble and not come out of it for the same reason. But I commend you for the fact that you decided to immerse yourself and learn about it. I'm pretty sure it was pretty tough at first, especially being shy. But then as you got older, it got better. So that's good.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I would say, I think that everybody goes through different life situations, and ultimately, I'm with you that 100%. Learning a new language, whatever language it is always going to be good for you. But I think one of the barriers that our communities, immigrant communities might face is just depending on, again, what that family situation is. But we do have a lot of families who are immigrants who come here to start a new life, and they don't even have time to do anything other than go to work. And all they can do is get straight to work, very long days of working, and then right back to coming back home to, spouse or kids and taking care of the home. So I feel like, again, I was very fortunate that I was able to come into a situation where I was going to school and I had that family support, and I didn't have to worry about, working or spending a lot of my time doing something that would prevent me from learning. So yeah, I agree. There's hopefully everybody that gets presented with the opportunity to learn the language or any skill will take it. But yeah, I do believe that everybody's situations are different, and that will always play a role.
Right. And I think, like, say for me, is if you learn English, that's gonna help you get from the situations where you have to work harder. It's gonna help you because of knowing how to communicate. You might be able to get more managerial positions. Situations where you don't have to be the one working, in the sun all the time. Maybe you get to be more clerical, more administrative, because there's opportunities, and I really hope everyone like that comes is able to just take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said, Rich. I mean, I see it all the time in what I do.
Construction, yeah.
General contracting, construction. A lot of guys, solely Spanish speakers, have incredible knowledge in their craft, and the only thing holding them back is just the language. They learn if they were to learn English, they can get those kind of leadership roles, and it's just waiting for them. But like you said, it's all about situational things. Not everyone has that time, or just they're in that place in their life where they're open or can give themselves that time to learn. But I wanted to touch a little bit on how you moved forward. You ended up valedictorian your high school. You went to UT for PR, and then when did this musical career? How did that start up?
Well, I keep talking about mariachi music, and I think that would really be the segue. I've been singing since I was, I don't know, since I was in kindergarten. I mean, going back to growing up in Mexico, and really my first singing experiences happened in school, in kindergarten, just singing for, the asambleas, the school assemblies, and people would just gather, and it would be, come on, Leslie, do your thing, and they would
sing for us,
and then of course you would have the asambleas in like around November when it's La Revolución Mexicana, and so you would have the whole school dressed up in their
20 de noviembre.
20 de noviembre, you have the whole school dressed up in their little revolucionario or revolucionaria outfit. And so of course I had my little, my skirt and my huaraches and my white top and trenzas, of course. That's really how I got started. I just sang everywhere I would go. And my first song I ever learned was a traditional Mexican polka, called Atotonilco, and my grandma, my abuelita, taught me how to sing that song. And my I do have song or music in my blood. Just both of my parents are good musicians. Nobody really in my family does it professionally, but everybody would just pop out an instrument and play at family gatherings. Just bring out the whatever, the maracas, or if you didn't have a guacharaca, you would pull out the notebook with like the spiral and then a pen and then just go. I mean, whatever you find for an instrument goes. And so yeah, my family just really loves music. There would be guitars here and there, and I think from there, you know, just getting exposed to it in school, but moving, you know, going into present time, that experience of getting introduced to mariachi music, and especially when I arrived in Austin and I started playing around town with the UT Mariachi, but also we got opportunities to record a couple of you know, songs for a project through the Butler School of Music, and you know, that got me some exposure to meeting some producers and local just local music team players, and again, you know, once I graduated college, that's when I started thinking about, you know, what the next steps are. And just that's really when I, again, with a lot of support from my local community and friends and family, just started kind of going into writing, because that wasn't really a thing that I did. And I started writing my own stuff, and then just, you know, began recording, and I've put out a couple of EPs, 5-6 songs, and then finally I'm looking towards releasing my first full-length album. So
wow,
yeah,
that's exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
exciting.
It's been a fun road.
Man, your family sounds wonderful. I can just picture myself being at that party and like having to grab something to join the song and the music.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I'm curious, like what were a lot of the musical influences growing up that you would hear a lot? I know you speak a lot about mariachi music, but were there other artists or songs or genres that you can recall?
Yeah, again, pop music was really big, and ironically, American pop music.
American
too.
pop music is huge.
Because
it's global.
It's global, but also when you live in the border with the U.S. and you know in northern Mexico and Monterrey, you know, it's less than 3 hours from the border with Texas. There's so much crossover, and you know, culturally speaking, there was definitely a lot of American pop music playing, and continues to be on the radio. And then of course, you know, having an older sister who also listened to that, and my cousins who were super into NSYNC. I mean, it was just kind of an inevitable experience for me. But then, you know, you would laugh because I would if you would have gotten in the car with my mom back in the 90s, she would be playing complete opposite. You know, she would have like Juan Gabriel and Rocío Dúrcal playing, and then you know, she loved the Carpenters of all, you know, musicians, and she was so into Shania Twain. So really, there was so
pretty
many
varied.
there's so many different genres and influences that were happening at the same time. You know, of course, Mexican pop music as well. You know, there was you know, Sin Bandera, and there was Hash, and all of these, you know, great musicians and singers that were all really great inspirations. And again, ultimately, the thing that I've been, you know, as I reminisce on, you know, what my influences are, it always goes back to pop music and mariachi music, and really kind of bringing those two together is something that I have been looking forward to, and I think with this new record that I'm gonna be putting out, I finally achieve that, and so I'm really excited about it.
It's like, say, when it comes to like Spanish, like say pop in the 90s or like either late 90s or early 2000s. I feel like that genre of music in English and Spanish is gonna stay forever, like, because I grew up with Onda Vaselina, Cava, and then I moved here. Hash was coming out. Sin Bandera was just starting to, you know, to sing. Elefante, Rayleigh was there, and they had like just the Spanish way of singing was just completely different to the past. Like they had changed like the industry and how they you know, they were performing. And then in English, like the Backstreet Boys, that was something that, you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of people got to like learn English through them.
Right.
So, and I'm pretty sure it would be like sometimes the pronunciation, like for me, because when I moved to Mexico, I already knew English, so I would hear people that don't speak English not say anything in English. However, whenever they were singing those songs, it was like, dang, you sound like you know English. You're pretty good.
That's always been one of my curiosities about music when it's like in different languages, because you see a lot of artists that sing in English. They do a Spanish song, and you're like, wow, you sing that really nicely, like almost like you speak it. Which I don't know if you can know any of that or can touch on that, but I feel like even if you don't know a language, but if you push yourself to sing something, it phonetically comes a little easier, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of my biggest musical idols is Linda Ronstadt. And so she didn't speak a word of Spanish, but she, towards the end of her very great career and very musically diverse career, towards the end, she got to record a mariachi album. Yeah. And so that is one of the best mariachi albums out there. And I believe it's the best-selling Spanish language album in the United States ever.
Okay.
I had no idea.
And this album is called Canciones de mi Padre. And so Linda didn't speak a word of Spanish, but that record is superb. And she put her whole heart into it. And, of course, she worked with a fantastic team of, mariachi musicians and producers. And, of course, she had the team to back her up with it. But I know that, just kind of being a fan and doing my research, I've learned that she really wanted to immerse herself in it and asked her musical director to work closely with her to make sure she was pronouncing things correctly as she was recording. And then she took that record on tour as well. Yeah. And she sold out her tour around the country.
That's incredible.
And the performances are unbelievable, as good as anything that she had done in her career as a pop star and a rock star and a country star before that. So absolutely, I think as long as you get your mind into it and your heart really into whatever you do, it will come out great.
And I think one thing, like from what it sounds like, she had respect for the language. Instead of like, I'm going to do it my way and not really worry about the pronunciation, but having someone like, hey, this is how you say it in Spanish in a certain way, in a certain tone. That pretty much had a lot to do with not just the song itself, but also the delivery of the song.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, she grew up listening to it, and her dad was Mexican, and he would sing these songs with his guitar when she was little. So she was exposed to it, but she didn't really learn to speak the language, which I know a lot of people are familiar with that situation where their families, might be Hispanic and they don't really get the opportunity to learn the language, maybe because of fears of, being ostracized or being othered. But really, again, just tying it all back together, I think just the learning of the importance, especially in the 21st century where we get the great opportunities that we do of, just speaking up and being more accepted for, diversity and inclusion and just the importance of being bilingual and just, getting yourself out there and making sure that if you have the opportunity, you learn it and you go for it.
Right. I was speaking to a friend the other day, and kind of to your point of diversity and kind of the times we're living in now, it feels like Latinos are trending. Mexican culture is like hot trending, especially in the U.S., or at least our communities are more proud and maybe just in positions that they're more comfortable and just more willing to just follow their heritage instead of trying to assimilate to what is like common American culture. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's special to hear you talk about your music, your influences, and your future project kind of joining this pop and this mariachi music. I'm really excited to hear that.
Yeah, and I'm excited to share it with the world when it's time. I don't have a date yet, but it's coming this fall. Yeah.
How many songs are you doing in the album? 12?
It is 12 songs. You guessed. How did you guess?
I think I heard it earlier, but then I have selective memory.
I do not believe I mentioned that. So you just very good guess.
No, Richie does his research. He knows
sometimes. Sides like off a lot.
It is on my bio. That's where you got it.
I think so. No, it's I was so for me it's earlier. I've been looking at like listening to your music and okay, how can I talk about you, but then not try to ask the typical, hey, so what's in the future? What's coming up? like get a little more deep in it. And I was like, great, you know what? I'm probably gonna listen to the songs over and over, and then try to find part of the lyrics where like, okay,
something that speaks to you.
let me see what we can get out of this.
What spoke to you, Richie?
What spoke to me, man? A lot of the things, like for me, is you. So there's this one, like makes rapper. I don't know if you've heard of Snow the Product, and the way she delivers, rap is by saying "Soy la pinche mexicana con tremendo flow," and she embraces her culture and her like life through her songs. Like every time you hear a song of her, she diverts from the the partying all the time, and she's actually speaking more about like, hey, like I'm the one that comes here. Sometimes she's giving some some shit to other people, but she's always bringing this part of the culture, this part of herself being a Mexican woman, rapper especially, and how she they wanted her to be this certain way, and she's like, no, I'm gonna do it how I want to do it, how some of the product wants to do it, how Claudia wants to do it. So and now going back to you, is your music, it kind of in a way, like say in the pop, in the in a different genre, it's very similar aspect, because you talk about so much of what you're saying, just coming here, appreciating both countries, appreciating being an immigrant, appreciating the power of voting, the power of like this which I'm gonna touch in a little bit, which is like the power of even like say this country helping you bring the best out of yourself. And I feel like a lot of the times, like I know there's something like say, like you don't really sing much about like love or you probably have in a couple of songs, but overall it's more about you. Like you're the one speaking those lyrics, and that's for me. That's what I got, and it's like, man, that's pretty good, because it's very authentic. It's not like industry driven or industry oriented by somebody telling you what to sing. You're doing your own thing. And as you were saying earlier, you started writing your stuff. The process of writing, when did you first decide, okay, I'm going to write like this chunk of a song, and then from that build on?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, probably the first song I ever wrote was like a really tacky love song in college, but nothing really that I took seriously,
right.
Because I was never planning to record that ever.
Okay.
It was just for me. But really, when I got down to it was when, again, I had graduated college, and I was just looking towards, what's next musically. And there really wasn't like a, let me sit down and do this right now. I mean, it does take a lot of that. It takes applying yourself and discipline and thinking about, well, you are challenging yourself and you're kind of working towards that goal. But I would say for me, the writing process, it doesn't even come naturally. It takes work. And I just, have, like my team, which in this case, my team is like, it's Gavin, my adoptive dad / music manager.
Shout out Gavin.
Shout out Gavin. Who's always on my back about Bob Dylan. I mean,
oh yeah,
constantly.
He seems to be like in every musician's like thread of just like where the root of wherever they grew to. Like somehow he comes up in so many combos.
Yeah. Oh, he does. He's every songwriter's. He's every songwriter's inspiration.
There you go.
And of course he is a genius, and he did great. But that was a harsh thing to do. Like this person who's just starting to write, and then Gavin is like, okay, now here's Bob Dylan. Now you're just like Bob Dylan, but you're a Mexican woman. So what are you gonna say? Go. And obviously, I mean, it was a great challenge. It really was. But just kind of like you said, writing from personal experience. I think that's the only way that I've been able to do it, because I don't know any other way. But yeah, it does take some discipline for sure.
And also, like, I mean, discipline of bringing something out of inside into a writing part. I can barely, write a sentence sometimes when I'm doing an outline. It takes me an hour because I'm like rephrasing everything I say.
Yeah, well, and honestly, for music, going back to Bob Dylan in a more serious way, just kind of having something to say, and you're writing your own music, so if you have the opportunity to say something, then say it. And I think that's really been my approach. And again, being an independent artist, I don't have anybody telling me that it's wrong to do X or Y. So I'll just do whatever, my heart dictates at the time, and then roll with it. I'm very, very humble that you've listened to the stuff that is out there, but I can't wait for you to hear the new stuff. It's great. It's really, again, not that because I wrote it, but because I think it's the most authentic stuff that I've done. And again, just the most well put together, piece of work, or really just a compilation of different, songs that took a long time to write. I mean, this whole project, 12 songs, it probably took years to get to it.
Yeah. I'm so interested in that aspect where we as consumers of music and of art, we see it, we react, we like it, we love it, and then we move on. But the process behind that piece is immeasurable to us as an audience. So if you can speak to us a little bit about that creative process and what it was like in what you're doing now.
Yeah. Again, the writing part does not come naturally to me, but I think something that helps me a lot is just, for starters, a lot of my songs, at least in this new record, I started just, again, with my instrument, whether it was a little vihuela or a guitar or on a keyboard. And I would just kind of come up with, chord progression that I could sing in, and something that was feeling right, and something probably very familiar, because again, that's what you go to. You go to the stuff that and a lot of it just ended up being, a huapango, because I love huapangos with all my heart. And so I would just kind of start messing around with different styles of music that I'm familiar with, and again, just putting my own thoughts and my own words to it. And then, once I brought the songs into the studio, then they took a life of their own, just, with the production, aspect of it. And I worked with a really great team of producers and musicians who are just outstanding. And they really helped me bring the concept together of, the mariachi and the pop all in one. And that's really been the journey for me, at least with this last record.
Right on. That's awesome. I'm super excited to hear it. I know you say don't have a date yet, but I'm just going to sit here at the edge
I'll
of my
keep
seat.
you posted.
Thank you.
All right. So one thing I want to go back is, I want to just go into the, a little bit of between, earlier we were talking about, like, say, people, when you lived in Monterrey, you will come every so often to the border. There's a lot of similarities between Texas and Nuevo León. La carne asada, over here is barbecue. They both embrace it. Now, what are some differences you found as you moved to Texas?
Well, for starters, obviously the language. The language was the biggest thing, but my experience was always so just always surrounded by family. That was always kind of my upbringing. And then I did have, my dad's side of the family on this side of the border. So I still got to interact with family a bunch. But again, I don't know necessarily if it's Texas versus Nuevo León thing. Maybe just in general, the culture is different in the sense of, the Mexican way of life tends to be very focused on happiness. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are so many things wrong with our country and our government back home, and just so many things to be sad about. But I think that it has been the Mexican identity to decide that we're not going to focus on that. And instead, we're just going to party, and we're going to do a carne asada and embrace the good things in our lives, like, having big families and close friendships and compadres and comadres, and you call tío, and everybody is your tío and everybody's your tía. And I think that I would say that is, for for me probably one of the experiences. And I mean, I've, now that I'm an American and I'm living the American life, I do see myself as like, well, it's a lot more about work.
It's fast paced.
It's fast paced.
Pressures and pressures and pressures.
Yeah, and you work hard towards your career and achieving your professional objectives.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I think a good balance of the two would be the perfect merge.
Yeah. That's interesting I say that, because I've seen a lot of cases where families are much more united in Mexico. My family too, like in my dad's side is from San Luis Potosí, and I'm in a WhatsApp group with all my primos back in San Luis, and they're always planning like, oh, it's someone's birthday, let's get together. Oh, ¿quién va a traer las chelas?
¿Quién va a traer la
right? It's not formal at all. It happens like a party happens every week, and I'm like, man, I'm so sad I'm not there. And I have a lot of tios here and some primos, but something happens that, in my case, you get to this side, Houston, Dallas, wherever you are, the family starts to kind of isolate themselves a little bit more, and you just end up meeting at Christmas or like some very important holiday or tragedy or whatever. But it's kind of sad to hear. But also my dad, having that, he's now officially lived in the U.S. more than Mexico, so he kind of reflects on that, and he just talks about how like here it's just like worries and very work driven and pressure, but at the same time him and my mom were able to give us, me and my siblings, the life that we have and opportunities that we have, and they grew their business. So, man, that balance, like, where is it, right? Yeah. So that's why, like, I'm a first gen. I kind of got to experience both, and you guys have experienced both as well. Like, we see that, and we, starting out our careers or in our lives, like, how are we going to balance those things that we have a little bit more perspective? I feel it's kind of a privilege, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Now it's funny. And I was actually thinking earlier as you were talking about, like, man, what is one thing that, that we have that's, and you're like, the party part. And I was like, I had a feeling you were going to say party part.
but not so much the party part.
But it's just the joy of, hanging out and getting together.
It's the joy of connection.
Yeah.
Like social, true, honest, good social interaction.
Right.
I think is easier to get in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, you have like the typical WhatsApp groups with like your friends or your cousins, your primos and whoever, and they're always talking about gathering and having parties and things like that. I'm like, man, like, I mean, you guys party a lot, but that's a good thing because people like they do have their day jobs and their things that they do during the week, and then what people look forward to is their weekend well spent in social settings.
For sure.
Right. Now let's go a little bit into the part of your music. You already pretty much talked about like what sparked your interest and then what genres, which is pop and mariachi. So you're an independent artist, so they already, there's no record label behind, but you will still work with a team of producers and musicians. Let's get into your two albums. One is Fool's Paradise, and can you just give a little summary of the album and the meaning behind the songs and how was that first album? Let the audience know a little more about it, and then we'll go into the second one, which is the Dual Passport.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because even the name I feel like reflects where I was. Fool's Paradise. I mean, I feel like I was cruising. I was figuring out what on earth I was doing. This is the first time I'm writing my own songs and just putting myself in the situation where I'm actually gonna release this music and put it in front of people. But I would say, just again speaking from personal experience and where I was, and I think that the first EP, it's so naive in a way, but again a really great start to my journey. Writing and composing and really just applying myself into this, art form that was, almost completely new to me. And then, musically, I got the opportunity to work with a fantastic producer. His name's Michael Ramos. And Michael, I met through the UT Mariachi, and we got to go into a studio to record a couple of songs, mariachi songs, with the UT Mariachi Ensemble. And from there I connected with them, and I went back to a studio and recorded my stuff there. Then fast forward to Dual Passport, which was a couple of years ago, and so with that, I feel like it was, again, speaking for personal experience, but at the same time just digging a little bit deeper into just the Mexicanidad and the topic of embracing your identity, embracing who you are. And again, in my case, there's just no denying, my whole life experience has been shaped by, two countries, two languages, two cultures. And I really wanted to touch on that with Dual Passport and that EP. And, again, the song's very, there's a love song in there too. But of course, in this journey called life, you experience a little bit of everything and emotions, whether it is love in English or love in Spanish, it's still love. But te amo is a lot more powerful than I love you in my personal experience.
It's a little deeper.
Okay.
It goes deeper every time. But yeah, again, the journey, whenever I look back at, the last, I don't know, 8, 9, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, it has all kind of led to, it's always, you just don't know it until, years have gone by, but you understand that one thing leads you to the next, and it puts you in this new situation where you might be more confident and you're just growing and learning. And again, without my experience with recording Fool's Paradise and Dual Passport, I wouldn't have landed this new record that will be out this fall. So
Okay. The fall. She said fall.
There you go.
It could be the beginning of the fall or the late of the fall, but it'll be the fall. So another thing is, we want to talk about like a couple of the songs. Citizen of the World is pretty much never forgetting where you came from and where you're from. You seem very connected with that aspect because you come, from Monterrey, from Mexico, and you went from singing en el coro de la primaria a cantar en el Q2, and you used to embrace that's. Can you give us a little more of in that aspect of how would you encourage someone to feel like, hey, never forget where you came from, no matter what.
Well, again, I think that's a privilege that I get to, in this day and era, I get to be very vocal about that. And, there's no repercussions to me embracing the duality in my identity. Whereas I know that for older generations, that was the case. I mean, a lot of people who had, families from different countries and spoke different languages, it was not acceptable. You had to speak English, and if you spoke another language, you were just not cool. And again, I think a lot of people, I mean, you got to commend the people who go back to, those generations, and they still went through it, and they embraced, both of their nationalities or, their identities. But for me, again, I think that's a privilege that I got to enjoy, and that I've never, until you sit down and think about how easy it is to do it these days compared to what other people in previous generations had gone through. It's, it's something that, again, it's not to be taken lightly, because it has taken years of, just social justice and civil rights movements and in so many different areas of the social spectrum. But it has taken people and generations fighting for being able to be accepted for who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter your background or your history. And it's something that we shouldn't take lightly, and that we should take as a privilege, but at the same time honor it and live it and enjoy it.
Somehow keep it there, keep the memory alive. It might be a different situation, but keep it alive. I think because, like, say, our generation, we don't have to, like you were saying earlier, Cesar Chavez, for example, he was fighting for the rights of the agricultores. We don't have to do that because he already did that. So just honoring someone like him. One cool thing is there's a street under his name, and a lot of businesses there seem to honor his name through that. And but I hope that it goes beyond just the street name, but also goes beyond. Make sure the restaurants that are there actually somehow honoring the life of a person that's growing the food, that is serving the meal to the person that's going to eat there and consuming their product.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one is All American Girl. That gives a little more of a, that you say, how has, for me, is how has the U.S. helped you be the best version of yourself?
Well, again, just there's been so many, and I know that everybody talks about the American dream. Not everybody gets to live that. It could be a myth for some people. It's not an easy thing to achieve. It doesn't just come your way. But in my case, I just, again, arriving in this country, I had my mindset that if I was gonna leave my mom and my siblings, back home, in my family, in my country, and my friends, and whatever life I had built, up until age 16, if I was going to leave all of that behind, then might as well make it worth it. So, again, that I think that mindset of working hard, in embracing the opportunities that are no doubt, a part of the American experience. And again, just going back to, school and how there are resources available for extracurricular activities or, scholarships, which is how I got to go to college here, just through financial aid and the kind of support that, you do have to seek it out. It may not always be right in front of you, but there was a system of support system that was behind me, counselors in high school who kind of pursued, or really would encourage that, hey, there are opportunities. Why are you talking about going back to Mexico? Like, why would you pass on this, big, financial aid opportunity if you get the opportunity to just, go to a big university? Or again, not to say that we don't have good schools in Mexico, but, it was the opportunities were presenting themselves. And I think that I would say is the biggest part of the American way of life is, especially as an immigrant, you learn to see the difference. Again, not that when you are born and raised here, you don't see it, because you can read about it and see it, and we're so connected. I mean, you have it all over social media, and with a click on your news app on your phone, right, you know what's going on in the world. And not everything is, pink and flowers in America. There are a lot of situations and things that we are living through, especially nowadays, where we're going through hardships and so much social chaos. Right. But, it is undeniable that there are opportunities here that we don't always have in our home countries. And honestly, I don't even remember what your question was, but
no, it goes down to the line. Like you're going to, I can see, like, you're talking about like the resources, and a lot of the times we don't take advantage of it. Like, especially as you were saying, you're born here, you haven't experienced what the people that born in a different country, the different things. I mean, not you were born here, but like someone who's born here, how they hear about all of these situations people have gone through that, that come to America. And then, but it's like, say, even us that become from Mexico to America, how we have to still go find those opportunities, because they're out there. And a lot of the times, even though there's chaos and there's all this, stuff that we have, there's social injustice. I mean, we're also just looking at the abortion overturned by the Supreme Court and everything else. There's still some good in some parts of the society where we have to take advantage of, because the only way for us to probably create a change or do something is by taking advantage of those opportunities and getting to the positions that we can to be able to change things. And another thing you're saying, just like the power of voter and citizenship, it's a very powerful thing. I mean, voting is powerful. Like, we're seeing it more and more how powerful that is, because it's starting to affect more individual people. Like, instead of just the masses, it's starting to take on tolls emotionally, physically, and mentally.
Yeah.
So,
And if anybody understands the importance and the honor that it is to be able to vote, I think it would be an immigrant who became a U.S. citizen, because, the immigration process, it looks different, depending on individual case scenarios, but there it is a long process. And so whenever I was writing the music and the songs for Dual Passport, I actually had recently become a U.S. citizen. And so even though I had been here for years prior, I had a green card. So again, not everybody understands the immigration system or what a green card is, but it's basically permanent residency status, which is the first step to becoming a U.S. citizen. Mm-hmm. So you have to spend 5 years as a permanent resident before you can apply for your citizenship. And so, I got to do that, and I got to vote. Mm-hmm. And again, that's just in a country where you know that democracy works to the best of its ability. I mean, it's not a perfect democracy, but where you can see that, the history backs it up. You have a history to show that democracy is real, and to be a part of that and be able to participate in that. Not to say that we don't have democracies in Latin America, specifically talking about Mexico, but we know that there's so much corruption, and again, there's corruption everywhere, including in the United States, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But just the power of the vote in America, it has so much weight. And I think you learn to see that as you acknowledge experiences abroad.
That's so wonderful to hear you say that and kind of speak your perspective in that aspect. Just to touch on voting, my dad is a naturalized citizen, and there's no person that encourages me more to vote than my dad, because he's always the first one to go as soon as you can vote, and he shows me the sticker. He's like, "Hey, where you at? Have you voted? Have you voted?" And I'm like, "Damn, Dad, you're on top of your shit." But nah, I respect him a lot. And another thing you touched on is kind of how imperfect our system is here in the U.S., even though we have all this opportunity. And to touch on that, there have been times here, especially through a lot of social chaos that you mentioned, whether it be racial or gender equality, anything that's been happening over the past 5 years in the U.S., where I've voiced it either through social media or through some type of family setting. And my family from Mexico, particularly an uncle, David, who's very outspoken, and he's lived in Mexico his whole life, right on the frontera in Miguel Alemán. And, they see a totally different perspective, like totally different environment when it comes to safety. Mm-hmm. He would get at me and say, "What are you complaining about? Like, I don't get why you're protesting or doing anything like this." Or it's interesting, having that perspective where you feel like, man, this is just not right. And then someone telling you like, there's a lot of things to take for granted.
Well, but all of that complaining and standing up for what's right is what has what has led America on its path. Right. And again, just the fact that people, when they come together, are able to make that change is so powerful. And just being able to be a part of that is a great opportunity.
For sure.
That's good. No, it's a powerful thing. I think I'm a very outspoken person when it comes to the politics. And I do have my, like, go Beto, and let's take Greg Abbott down, and let's do what we can in the right way. Always the legal way. But, sorry. Now, we want to talk about the challenges. As a woman, you face challenges in the music industry. Give me 1 second while I look at it. So what has been, like, say, for example, for you, especially as you're trying to merge the culture and the musical part, you're trying to put those together in music. How has that been challenging for you as a woman?
Well, I would say that one of the things that you notice when you're, in the industry is that, especially in the studio setting, you realize that you're going to be working with a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's nothing wrong with working with guys, but that is the industry, and that has been the industry for a long time. And you know, it is changing slowly, but it is changing. I know that there are a lot more women songwriters and producers, especially when it comes down to being in the studio and getting to work with other women. That is an opportunity that is not there very often. And you do get to work with your peers, you know, whether they're women or men. It really doesn't matter when it comes to, you know, being a good musician and being good at your craft. But it does make a difference, and it does make you think how that has shaped the outcomes of the music industry and what it does. And, you know, especially, you know, the sexualization of women and you know, now there's been kind of that turnaround where women are like embracing that and using it in you know, in a positive way. But of course, again, it has been a journey. For me personally, you know, I've always felt very supported in the local music scene, and I really do think that embracing that womanhood and just coming from my own perspective as a woman is it's a weapon. I mean, it's a tool. And again, because no matter who you are, where you come from, I think it's important to speak up and you know, share your perspective. So I would say that, you know, again, not that I haven't faced challenges in that way, but, you know, whenever I would be in the studio and I'd be working with fantastic people, they were all men. So, you know, I did bring in some of the musicians that played in the record. You know, the guitarron player, Sofia, she is an amazing guitarron player. She's a student at Texas State. And you see this, you know, sweet little girl, and you wouldn't believe that she plays the heck out of that guitarron. And it's so cool to get to see that. So, again, you know, I just feel that you see it across the board, across the industry. But hey, I'm one of the people or the women who believes that I'm here to be a part of that change, and why not do the writing, and why not being a part of the production team, and why not being involved in the whole process.
That's great. That's great to hear you say that, and kind of give us a little bit of perspective to some challenges you face as a Latina in the industry, in an industry that for a lot is slowly changing, but is male dominated for one part. I come from, I'm working in a construction background, and I see a lot more women coming through our company and our colleagues and associates that we work with. And it's exciting to see. But I would like to hear from you, what is something that we can do as men to help, you know, kind of lift or help women in situations where maybe they're the only one in the room, or they're new to this industry. Like, what are ways that we can be better as men?
I mean, if it's a male-dominated industry, I would say always be mindful that, you know, obviously be yourself, but at the same time, like, always watch your comments, especially if you're used to being in an environment where you're always surrounded by guys and you're always talking like that manly dude or whatever. Again,
los albures.
Los albures. I mean, again, not that there's anything wrong with it. Like, women can be on board with that too, and kick your butt when it comes to, you know, you know, just being the smarter person in the room. But just, again, I mean, I would say just being mindful of what you say, and at the same time, just showing your support. And if you're seeing that this is the only woman in the room, then even embracing that and saying, hey, we're so glad to have you on the team. You know, you make our team special for bringing your own perspective into the team and the situation. And you know, if you're in a position of power, then open up those opportunities for diversity and for, you know, just new perspectives, and again, just kind of trying to overcome the biases that surround different industries.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear you say that. Sometimes, I mean, I consider myself a conscious person, But my wife, she's Puerto Rican, and what I love about her the most is that she calls me out on like a lot of shit. Like she just tells me straight up, like, what do you mean by that? What was that comment about? So, yeah, she definitely keeps me on check there with some things that are just so ingrained that maybe you say like casually, but like you said, being conscious of people that are there and their perspective, and working with that is important. So. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, sure, anytime.
Yeah, I know. No, I think we try to always be a bit more conscious of especially when we're around women. Like within us guys, we're over here, talking shit to each other, but we do try to be respectful. And we're always for us is always embracing just like women in general.
Right.
I mean, because we're born because of a woman, that gave birth to us.
Sure.
So that's the first step that for me is kind of like I always embrace that. Like I always, admire what my wife does and what she's done, in every aspect of like her life. Then also like my mom and my sister, same thing. So for me, being able to have I would say a good relationship with my mom and my sister kind of has helped me have a good relationship with my wife and knowing that at least I can conversate. So whenever I go out there, and women that are not part of my family or part of my circle, it's a lot easier. And I don't have to, and I know what to watch and what not to say.
Right.
More than anything.
Yeah. We're excited. We're actually excited to hear about your future projects. I know we've heard a little bit about the album kind of in the oven.
Yeah.
What shows and events do you have coming up?
So I am playing Mariachi USA this fall. So it'll be
Mariachi USA.
Yeah. So it's the original Mariachi USA happens every year at the Hollywood Bowl, and it's a massive event. We just I got the opportunity to go out there and watch the show last month, and it's a spectacular show. So they're actually bringing that into Austin to the Moody Amphitheater, and I'm gonna be singing there on September the 17th, which is a Saturday. So
September 17th, mark your
Next
calendars.
after
USA.
El Grito de la Independencia.
Oh yeah, it's that weekend. It's that weekend.
So it's a weekend full of performances, and you're playing a show.
It's just one night, but
it's one night.
But it's the weekend of El Grito en la Independencia de Mexico. So there's it's gonna go down. It's gonna be a great vibe, great environment, and so that's really one of the big things that I have coming up. And then also, I am very, very privileged to be playing Austin City Limits Festival this year.
ACL.
So, ACL, yeah.
Wow.
You're doing weekend 2?
Weekend 2,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, I'm not supposed to announce which day I'm playing yet, but I'm playing weekend 2. So.
From what I heard, it was like Tuesday. Now it's playing.
Wow, dude, that's awesome. You must be so excited. Like that's an incredible opportunities, and we wish to support you and be there for your performances.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, again, it's just always such an honor to get to represent, and I think that's one of the best ways that we can, being better and representing our communities and showing that we are all equally worthy of the opportunities that are around. I think that's the best way to show, how far you can go. And again, just be a role model as much as you can for, newer generations. And so it's going to be such a great honor for me to be on that stage. But at the same time, just looking forward to having a lot of fun and bringing out the new material that will be out by then.
Yeah, that's exciting. I know you're going to crush it.
Thank you.
You're going to crush it.
And I like how you said that, being a role model to future generations, because actually one of the reflection of the day questions was, what is something that you consider you can do to reconcile differences in society? And, there's a currently divided, and then you're bringing out all these ideas, and I'm like, man, you're actually answering that question in this whole episode. Like, I feel like that's how you're wrapping up that question. But that's good. Now I'm glad. Is there anything like we can do, in our platform to help you? Anything you want us to let out, or anything that you want us to share to the people that will listen to us?
I mean, honestly, just to support local music, I think is number one, and just being one of the few Latinos, because there's not a lot of Latino representation at ACL this year, but being
it's a shame.
Being,
It's a huge shame.
Yeah.
Being one of the Latinas and then being local, I think that's such a cool thing, and it's such a big deal for me. So just support your local music, and again, that's what makes Austin what it is, and that's what's attracted so many new people, and it's what makes us special. So just keeping that alive, and again, I know that y'all already do that, just by having me here today. So and then of course, even through Austin FC and the experience, with La Murga, and it's all bringing so much culture and like you said, lifestyle, and embracing that aspect of Austin, but specifically being Latino or Latina in Austin.
Absolutely.
I think the one thing that, like say, Koke spoke about in a couple episodes ago, he was saying how there's not a Mexican player in the team yet. But he mentioned, just the fact that we have some kind of representation and aspects that has to do with the culture, it somehow feels a lot more powerful than having just a player. I mean, not just a player, but having a player with, like a Mexican heritage or Mexican, like being born in Mexico. So that's good. And I feel, that hopefully, through what you're doing, there's more opportunities that are open for you. Hopefully one day you get to, like whenever they play in Mexico City, they bring you down and travel, make you try, like not make you travel, like have you travel and sing the Spanish and English national anthem in a NFL stadium in El Azteca with 100,000 people there. That would be pretty cool.
Hey, the World Cup is coming, so you better watch out.
Oh, dang. She said, let me go beyond that.
That's incredible.
I'm ready for it, guys. I'm ready.
I know you are.
Just wait.
That's cool. And do you have any question for us before we wrap up?
Man, you put me in the spot like that.
I know. I ran out of a reflection of ideas. So you know what? Let me see if I can. I don't think we would never ask that question to anyone, right?
Yeah. You definitely put Leslie on the spot, right?
But you don't have to answer it.
No. I mean, I guess just getting to have these conversations with people. I know you've spoken to like local politicians, all the way to like you discuss sports and you speak about music and culture. Like, what have been some of your takeaways from just getting to have these discussions with different local culture representatives?
Yeah, I think some of my biggest takeaways of a lot of the guests, including yourself, has just been fully throwing yourself at a passion and a vocation and making it more through just losing that fear and care of like what people think and how people react, and just consistently working at something and putting in that time and effort has been something that is kind of a clear string through everyone that we've brought onto this podcast, but also in the way that people do it so authentically. And that's what resonates, and that's what people recognize when it's not something that is, forced or like a persona. It's something that truly comes from the heart. And you spoke about it a little bit about when you did both of the anthems, that your experiences is something that you could tap into and really bring something beautiful through your voice, through your heart, to a crowd, and that immediately gets recognized by the audience as when they come up to you and say, hey, that was amazing. And I know you've been getting some recognition with the city as well. I mean, Mayor Adler gave you a official day.
Was it March 1st, 2018, right?
Yes, March 1st.
That's incredible.
Leslie Reynaga Day.
Leslie Reynaga Day. Hey, what are we gonna do to celebrate Leslie Reynaga Day, man?
We're gonna have to,
we
have to go to Hop Squad
and then sing Danza Wapango.
Or even better, you're gonna have to learn both the Star Spangled Banner and the Himno Nacional Mexicano, and you're gonna have to perform, all four stanzas, and perform on Leslie Reynaga Day.
For sure, the Himno Nacional Mexicano, I can go throw down the English one. I chop the word sometimes because I forget. Yeah,
I got you.
I need to get better at that. So there's times that I forget. I'm like, God, I used to say like. So you always hear that, like, just, mumble the rhythm, and then you catch on to look, okay, this is the part I remember. But yeah, I think like for me, like regarding here, it's about we want to open up a platform. We want to hear people's stories. We want to get to know the person behind the, not the persona, but just that person behind everything they do. And especially from the beginning to where they're at now and what has been the struggles they faced and what they overcame. And a lot of that is just getting to know people, and also the people that know the people. It's there's a lot of the times that we have a guest here that they know people like the other guest that was here in the past, or sometimes I didn't even know they existed. Like they knew each other. Like, oh yeah, that's my buddy and that's my friend.
The
networking.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty cool. And I mean, I'm part of La Murga. That's also helped me establish a lot more connections with musicians, with local artists. So and I don't, like, for me, I've never wanted to take anything of this as a popularity thing, but it's more like a networking thing. Like I want as many connections as I can, to be able to do it. So that's probably why I feel like I wanted to create this. It's just to connect and hear stories and drink beer.
No, and I think for sure that's we see a lot of that on the surface, but also the mission, I think, behind this podcast is really just supporting our communities, supporting our fellow Latinos or people of color, doing something different, doing something creative. Is something that I think sparks joy and love in a lot of us, and especially us here at Otra, por favor. So thank you for coming. Your story is amazing. Can you please tell our audience where they could find your music?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can go to my website, lesliereynaga.com, or you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music. My stuff is out there. YouTube, just search my name.
Just Google. Come on, let's go.
Let's do it.
That's it.
Well, all right. Thank you, Leslie, for agreeing to come with us and spend some time. And also check out her music, like she said. It's out there. You'll enjoy it as much as I did, and I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some songs that are gonna uplift you and make you feel good about being here. And also your background and your heritage. You're gonna find that appreciation as well. Without any further ado, this has been another episode of Otra, por favor.
Por favor.
Please follow us on Instagram, YouTube, anywhere at Otra, por favor, and that's with the X in between the favor and Otra. So yeah, thank you for listening, and ahí nos vemos, se portan bien y adiós.